Somewhere out there, people who know you professionally have a clear, specific opinion about something that you do that's holding you back. They noticed it, they talked about it with each other, and they have absolutely no intention of telling you. It's not because they're malicious or because they don't care, but it's because the social cost of saying it out loud is higher to them than the social cost of watching you keep doing it. So today, we're going to talk about what that feedback probably is, why it doesn't reach you, and most importantly, how to actually get it. Let's start. So I want to start by telling you about a painful, embarrassing moment of my early academic career. I was a PhD student in my second year out of 5 required to do the degree. So a senior professor from Harvard, no less, well-known, well-respected, was visiting from another university. She gave her research talk to the department, and then a bunch of us PhD students took her to lunch in a restaurant called Medici, which is the quintessential place if you are at the University of Chicago. I walked in thinking this was my moment. Here was somebody important. There was a chance for me to demonstrate that I wasn't just another nameless graduate student out of many, that I was actually intellectually curious, engaged with the literature, somebody worth remembering. So every time she made a point, I countered it. She offered an observation, I'd cite a study that supposedly debunked it. She made a claim, I would push back with data. I was being, or so I thought, smart and rigorous, the kind of PhD student who takes ideas seriously. But what I was actually doing was making the entire lunch painful for everyone at the table. By the end, even I could feel it. Even in my not so particularly self-aware younger self, something actually registered. The shortened responses from her, the way the conversation had stiffened, the particular quality of the silence that followed when I spoke. See, that professor was probably not thinking that I was competent, and she was not thinking that she might want to hire me one day. In fact, she didn't. She was thinking about how soon she could leave this ridiculous lunch. And here's the part that really stays with me. Afterwards, not one of my fellow PhD students who had been sitting at that table next to me, none of them said a word to me about it. Not one. These were not only my colleagues, they were my friends at the time. So they were people I trusted. And every single one of them had watched the whole thing happen and registered exactly what was going on and then said nothing. So I walked out of that lunch without the feedback that I really needed. I walked out thinking maybe I'd come on a little bit strong, but basically holding the mistaken self-image that I walked in with. What happened was I was a schmuck who didn't know he was a schmuck. And that, it turns out, was not an unusual situation. The research on feedback, on what people think versus what they say, suggests that this kind of gap is not the exception. It's actually the rule. Hi, everyone. Real quick, if you have a job interview coming up or you want to be genuinely prepared for when one does, I've prepared a free guide about the 5 things that interviewers really evaluate when it comes to candidates. This is not the obvious stuff. This is the 5 psychological dimensions that most candidates don't even think to prepare for. It'll get you ahead of almost everyone else in the room, totally free. Link is in the description. So mine wasn't an isolated incident. Tasha Urich, an organizational psychologist, had spent years studying self-awareness. Her research found that while 95% of the people believe they're self-aware, only about 10 to 15% actually meet the criteria for genuine self-awareness when measured objectively. That's a pretty staggering gap. Most people believe they know how they're perceived, but most people are definitely wrong. And the primary driver of that gap is not a failure of introspection. It's not that people are not reflecting enough. It's that the external feedback that they're receiving, the information that they need in order to actually be self-aware, is filtered by everybody else. See, the blind spots that we have are not random. They exist in precise categories where social norms make feedback hard to give. So what are those categories? Let's dive into them. So the feedback that you will hear all the time is technical and task specific. You might hear something like, this slide is unclear, or this report needs another section. That's easy to give. That's non-threatening to you and to the feedback giver. So you'll get a lot of technical feedback. You'll also hear a lot of positive feedback, of course, because it's safe to give it. You'll also hear a lot of feedback about bad things that you already fixed. So you might hear something like, that girlfriend was a total disaster. I'm glad you broke up with her. That's much easier to say after the relationship ended than during the relationship, even though you may need your best friends to give you that feedback while you're in a bad relationship. But the feedback you'll be very unlikely to hear falls into the category of interpersonal impact. How you come across to other people in real time, obviously a very important area of your life. So things like you make people feel like they don't matter, or you interrupt without realizing it. You're different one-on-one than you are in groups. You take credit in ways that quietly bother people, or you come across as kind of arrogant. That kind of feedback you rarely hear. See, the research on self-presentation, some of it by Mark Leary, documents that people notice arrogance very quickly. It registered immediately and strongly, but people almost never say it to other people because if you say to another person, you're really arrogant, that feels socially aggressive and it risks damaging the relationship that you have with that person. Similarly, research on ostracism by Kipling Williams shows that people who feel dismissed or overlooked by somebody rarely confront that person. Instead, they simply withdraw and say nothing. They just stop including you. They work around you. So the signal that you receive when you're inadvertently dismissing another person is not feedback, but rather it's distance or silence, which is far harder to interpret on your part. Similarly, research on conversation dynamics documents that people who interrupt conversations, who stop the flow of conversations, are almost never told this directly. Other people just talk less around them next time, and so the person who's doing the interrupting experiences this as the group becoming less engaged rather than as a consequence of their behavior, and so they cannot correct their behavior. Notice what all of these things have in common. It's not that there is no feedback to give. In fact, the feedback is given to everybody except for you. It's given in the form of gossip. It circulates as your reputation among everybody else. That's the thing that people say about you when you're not in the room. It travels everywhere except to the person who actually needs it and could act on it. It's really quite amazing how people are able to spread gossip so quickly without it reaching the one person for whom it matters. There's also a particularly important finding from research on performance feedback by Edwin Larson. What they find is that managers and leaders accumulate negative observation about a person who works under them for months and sometimes years without saying anything. And then they deliver all of it just at once in the performance review situation. This is long after the person have had a chance to change course. So the employee experiences this as a sudden, unexpected ambush of a deluge of negative feedback, whereas the manager experiences it as an obvious and long overdue communication. The gap between these two experiences is real, and the person who suffers for it is the one who never got the feedback in real time. So the feedback you're most likely missing right now is not something that's new to other people, it's just new to you, except those other people are usually not willing to give it to you. So why do the people around you who notice these things clearly stay silent? The research points to three distinct reasons. The first is that they anticipate that you'd have an emotional reaction and they just don't want to deal with it. So research by Blader and Chen showed that people systematically overestimate how badly someone will react to critical feedback. So they imagine defensiveness and anger on your part, and because they overestimate the emotional fallout, they conclude that it's better not to say anything. Now, the irony is that research on how people actually receive feedback shows that they usually handled it much better than the observers predict. The anticipated reaction is worse than the real one, but the anticipation is what people act on, and so the feedback doesn't get delivered. Now, this is almost certainly what happened with my colleagues at the dreadful lunch that I created. They saw what was happening, but they decided not to tell me because they were worried that I might be angry or reactive in one way or another. Now, the second reason is what's called the diffusion of responsibility. So in group settings, when there's a lot of people around, the likelihood that any one individual will speak up decreases as the number of the group increases. This is a finding from social psychology dating back to Latane and Darley's research, and it suggests that when multiple people witness the same thing, each person assumes that somebody else would say something or have already said something. So what happens is, ironically, nobody does. So for example, at my lunch, there were probably 5 or 6 PhD students present, and each of them likely assumed that somebody would tell me something, but because of that assumption, nobody actually stepped forward and helped me out. So this is why the feedback that we most need is paradoxically least likely to reach us when we have the largest audience. A room full of witnesses doesn't increase our chances of getting honest feedback, actually decreases it. Now, the third reason is related to ambiguity. So research by Morrison and Millikan on organizational silence document a pattern whereby when feedback is even slightly ambiguous, When somebody can ask themselves, is this actually a problem or is it just my personal observation? People generally default to silence. The bar for speaking up is higher than the bar for staying quiet, obviously. And whenever there's ambiguity, that provides an escape. People usually take it. And interpersonal feedback is almost always somewhat ambiguous. Is this person really arrogant or just confident? Is it just me thinking about it? Or would other people agree with me? That ambiguity is often enough to cause people not to say anything. So you put all these three together and you get a coherent picture of why feedback that would most certainly help you is exactly the feedback that almost never arrives. So given all this, given that the feedback won't come to us, how do we go to it and get it? So a few things that research actually supports. So first, you want to ask one person, not a group. When you ask one specific person in a one-on-one conversation, and you don't want to ask something like, do you have any feedback for me? But rather, you would say something like, I'd really value your honest take on how I came across in that meeting. Then you eliminate the diffusion effect. The responsibility to respond lands squarely on that one person that you asked, and they can't assume that somebody else will say something. Second, you want to ask about specific moments, not general impressions. So you don't want to ask something like, how am I doing? Or any feedback for me. Those are easy to avoid and kind of answer vaguely. What you want to ask is specific questions that are hard to deflect. For example, in that conversation with the client, was there a moment where I lost the room? Or you can say something like, I felt like the energy in the room shifted at some point. Did you notice that? That gives the other person a concrete anchor and makes it harder for them to offer a non-answer, basically. In addition, you want to explicitly lower the social stakes because anticipated emotional reaction is the primary barrier for people not giving you feedback. So it helps to directly address that. You might want to say something like, I'm genuinely trying to get better at this. I'm not going to be defensive. I really want to learn and improve. I'd rather hear something uncomfortable than not hear it at all. When you say something like that, it doesn't eliminate the barrier, but it meaningfully reduces it. What you're doing is you're preempting the calculation that the other person is definitely thinking about, which is, I don't want to deal with an emotional situation right now. Another way to do this is ask for what I call the third person version. One of the most effective question framings comes from research on executive coaching. So you might ask something like, what do you think other people on the team would say is my biggest blind spot? See, what you're doing is you're not asking the other person what they think, but rather what they think other people think. And that third person framing gives the other person some distance. See, it gives them the pretense that they're not personally criticizing you. They're just reporting what other might think. See, people are significantly more willing to say difficult things when they're talking about others. And what they tell you is probably almost always what they also think themselves. So by the end of it, you're actually getting honest feedback. So here's the reframe I want to leave you with at the end of this video. People around you are not withholding feedback because they don't care or because it doesn't exist. They're withholding it because of these three predictable social mechanisms. And your job is to make it easier for them to share feedback that you need and actually improve. Your blind spots are not your personal failure. Often they're just a structural outcome of how feedback works or doesn't work. So the good news is that structure is not fixed, and given the right question and the right framing, you can get the feedback that you need and improve much faster. So go get it. See you in the next one.